Hey, deserving listeners, 90 Day Fiancé, the single life. Let's see what comes out of my face as I watch.
To figure out how we solve our problem. I asked Colt to come over to talk because we have a lot to talk about.
Hello.
Hey.
Hello.
Hello.
How you doing?
All right, I'm glad that they're able to re-engage, but I'm actually terrified that things are going to go similarly as they did before. So let's see what happens.
Right now, my mother and I are kind of in this sticky situation of we don't really talk, and I don't particularly like that. I'm just trying to figure out what my relationship with her is now.
So.
Yeah, I mean, if I understand him right, that is a very good observation and insight for him, that he went from being very seemingly enmeshed and a companion for his mom, I think partially because he wanted to, and also because I think he felt like he had to emotionally for his mom. And he is now transitioning to a new relationship because he's with Vanessa and he doesn't want to live with his mom anymore. And so what does that look like exactly, right? You hear about some people where they only see their mom a couple times a year. Is that what we're headed towards? Or does this mean they're talking on the phone every day, even though they don't live together? You know, what is it that you want? And when you have that invasive enmeshment happening to you, you might not have ever entertained the question to yourself because you've never been allowed to have the freedom to choose. You know, it's like, I've never thought about living on Mars because I don't have an option to live on Mars. And if you're in a constant relationship where there is no option to have a separate life, once you start to go there, you might think like, well, what is Mars like? Do I bring everything with me? Do I start over? You know, do I come back to Earth you just have no idea because you've never had the opportunity to do that. If the development and the family progression was without the problems that they had, and I don't know exactly why they got to the enmeshment. I'm pretty sure it has something to do with the dad. The mom has said that it had to do with the dad's death, but I don't know. Just this seems like there's got to be more there. The mom doesn't seem like her only issue is that her husband had died. It seems way more involved than that, early childhood or something. But if the family had developed healthily in a more healthy way, Colt and Debbie, for that matter, would have had time to progress. There would have been steps along the way. A 16-year-old who spends a little bit more time out with friends, an 18-year-old who has a full-time job over the summer, a 20-year-old who starts to think about moving out in college, has other interests, a mom with an empty nest now that starts to invest in other relationships, maybe a romantic relationship. You know, there's slowly over time, but because of the enmeshment, and this is often the case, the only way for them to transition now is for there to be a big blow up, and often it is very abrupt, and suddenly you're having to do 5 to 10 years of transition in a family overnight.
How are you?
Vanessa and I are doing okay.
Okay. That's good. Well, I'm trying to stay out as much as possible. I don't want to get involved.
Sure, but like I want some relationship with you. I don't want.
All right, this is starting off well. She is, I think, trying to express care for him, or trying to respect his boundaries by saying, I've been trying not to get involved. I think she's saying, I've had impulses, but I think I've given you your space, right? Are we okay? I think that's what she was saying, because I don't think they're triggered right now. I think I'm worried that that's going to happen. And then because he's in a good mood, he is saying, yeah, I appreciate it that you're not invading my life, but I don't want you to not be a part of my life at all. So maybe they'll get to a more balanced zone where it's not all or nothing. But really, a lot of it depends on Debbie, I think. I mean, Colt is a huge part of this as well, but I think for Debbie, her issue now that the mom, Debbie, I haven't shown the scenes, but she's still with that guy that she met early in the season, and he's living far away. Is he in Canada or something? And he's now wanting Debbie to move in with him because she's having trouble finding a place to live, right? And she's heavily considering it. They seem like a really good couple, but it's pretty new as a relationship, so goodness knows. But they seem like, I mean, for this show, in terms of people who meet and have physical chemistry and emotional chemistry and no fighting, they seem like they have a pretty good chance to work out. I wouldn't put my money on it, but who knows? And so maybe for Debbie, since she has been able to transition to an adult peer-to-peer relationship, her emotional needs don't need to be met by Colt, and thus she can be more flexible in her relationship with him. Because that's been my hypothesis, is that her neediness with Colt and her enmeshment with Colt isn't because she wants to be with Colt. It's because I think for her, she doesn't think that she could be with anyone else. Or there was some barrier there, like anxiety or social anxiety or something, depression. And so by default, Colt was the one person because he was close to her and lived with her. And so that's when the enmeshment really took hold. So now that she has someone else, maybe she can be more flexible with Colt.
I want to just not have you in my life now that we're moving from this house.
Yeah. Well, a couple of things going on. I was going to move in with Audrey because we have to be out in 3 weeks.
Okay.
But that's changed. So I talked to Tony last night. And
all right, so to catch you up as well, Tony asked her to move in with him. And it's, I think, in Canada, I'm not sure, but she was going to move in with her friend, and we just learned that she has 3 weeks. So I think that is they're selling or no longer renting that house anymore. Colt is no longer paying for the house anymore or something like that. So she has this deadline. I was wondering about that because she's had a really hard time accepting the reality that she has to, there was that one season where she was given an opportunity to move into an apartment. She didn't like it. Yeah, it was a small, not so great apartment, but it's what she could afford, and it wasn't terrible. But okay, so now she's going to talk about, but from my knowledge at this point, Debbie hasn't decided if she's going to move in with her boyfriend.
And I'm going to visit for a few days, but he suggested that I move in with him, just go up there and live.
Who is this guy? Who is Tony exactly? I still haven't met him.
He treats me really good. I'm crazy about him. We're soulmates.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm going to take a guess and say that Colt, although is normal in his skepticism or worries here and wondering about who this guy is, he might even, so this is my guess, is that deep down, though, he probably is very happy. I'm just guessing about that. He might even feel like he has to perform a little bit of concern because otherwise it would come across as that he didn't care. I don't know. The way that Colt comes across, I wouldn't be surprised if that's true. It's also possible that he legit is resistant to this change, because that is something that happens. Is often we will frame enmeshment when it's between a parent and a child, that the parent is the one enmeshing with the child, but often it's a two-way street, at least to some extent. And when the parent decides to make moves to de-enmesh or to have some distance, the child will start to enmesh themselves. So maybe we'll see which one it is. Let's watch.
So what do you think I should do?
I mean, I don't know. You've only spent a couple days with him in person? You're kind of moving a little quickly, don't you think? And going from 0 to soulmate.
I'm not. But we have a connection. We have an instant connection.
Yeah, I mean, when she puts it that way, it's the way she's explaining it to Colt, he would be stupid if he didn't say something here, because the way she frames it, and I don't think I realized that she'd only been with him a couple of days, but they've been on the phone together, and those 2 days were very intense and very close, and the guy comes across as sincere and real and authentic. Now, who knows? He could be some horrible person, but he certainly seems adamantly into her, and there's really no question about his attraction to her and the way they feel around each other, and he's seems like a good emotional presence in her life. Again, I can't tell But but then to move in that fast, that he is asking for that is kind of a yellow flag, at least for something. But I don't know. So yeah, Colt would be a really bad son and even just a bad person if he didn't say, wait, so you've had 2 days together and you're going to move in with him and it's far away? Like, are you sure about that?
Well, that's your life. I mean, hope you know what you're doing.
Right. That was my suspicion. He protested or wondered and had some questions, but then returned pretty quickly to, well, it's your life if that's what you want to do. Because I think he's primarily concerned about her being happy without him. And this has that within it, right? And thus, I think he's happy about it. I think if there wasn't the enmeshment and the guilt tripping that she has done to him recently, I think he would have had a little bit more stick-to-itiveness with his protest and questions. But as it is, he's like, oh, wait, so this means that you'll be happy on your own with someone else? Like, oh, thank God.
Well, you're going to the Great North. Vanessa and I are going to travel for a bit.
Okay.
So I'd like to have Dad's ashes. So I want to give him all a good send-off. I don't think we need to hold on to them anymore.
Yeah.
Interesting. Did we know that the ashes were still around? Yeah, we did earlier this season, maybe. And interesting that that's coming up in this context. And families are like this. As a trained family therapist myself, I haven't had a family client in a long time. But for the first 10, 15 years of my career, I would say half of my clients were families, maybe a third or something. And, and when you're practicing 40 hours a week, it's a lot of families that you're working with. And a lot of the literature in my field, especially when I was coming up, was along the lines of the poetic nature of families, how families as a unit will behave in these symbolic ways. So as an example of that, I don't know, but as they've gone through these transitions, and there's been some bumps, that she is moving away to be with Tony, living her own life. He's moving with Vanessa to live their own life. And now they can finally let go of Dad. I don't know what the story is there, and I'm making up a lot of stuff here, but maybe Dad was the reason why they couldn't de-enmesh. And now that the de-enmeshment is happening, they can finally take that step and say, let's finally let go of Dad, or let's finally grieve Dad, or something like that. I wouldn't be surprised, because why would Colt bring that up? I guess another practical element is that she's moving to a smaller place, and maybe Colt is like, well, I don't want to, and especially if she moves far away, smaller place meaning the friend's place, but if she moves far away, it's probably not necessarily a smaller place. But for Colt, he might be thinking, well, if you bring the ashes with you, I might not be there, if you know what I mean. So there's some practical aspects to it, but I wouldn't be surprised if this has something to do. In other words, Colt might be having it emerge within him because of the transition they're going through, and or he might be trying to communicate something to her by asking this question. Let's see what she says.
He always wanted to be by water, and I was thinking Tahoe.
Yeah. She loves Tahoe.
And you okay with not being there?
I'm okay.
I'll take a video of it.
Okay.
Interesting. Colt seemed to be assuming that she didn't want to be there, or that she didn't want to deal with the ashes. I don't know if I'm reading into it, but Colt seemed to be saying, I'm going to do this, and didn't say, would you like to come? Maybe because Colt knew that she didn't want to come, or maybe Colt didn't want her to come, or something. I don't know. It's interesting. I wouldn't be surprised, who knows, if for Colt, by doing this, like as he is spreading the ashes of his father and grieving his father, he might say something like, I don't know, there's got to be something there, right, regarding the enmeshment. It could be something like, Dad, I finally did what you wanted me to do. I took care of Mom while you were gone, and now she's on her own. And so, Dad, I just want to tell you that. Or, Dad, you a-hole, you did whatever you did to us, or you left us or something, and you left me with Mom, and I've hated you this whole time. And so now that things are better, I can finally grieve you and properly dispose of your ashes, spread your ashes. So, or it could be 1,000 other things, but I don't know. I'm guessing we won't find out because the show doesn't usually go into that.
Colt wants Harley's ashes. He's more than welcome to them. I think that's what his dad would have wanted, and I'm very happy that he's doing that. I'll always have him in my heart, always. But falling in love with Tony has made it okay. Here's a list for the...
Okay, yeah, that makes a lot of sense too. That for Debbie, she has always been in love with her late husband, and now that she's with someone else, it is okay for her to let go, finally, right? Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I'm happy for Debbie along those lines. All right, well, that does it for that episode. Everyone out there, please take care of yourself because you deserve it. You really, really do.